So since the last time, what's happened? Not a lot to the bike, as you can see. What has happened, however, is I've got all of the ingredients we need here to make this rear subframe assembly up. Now hopefully we can fit all of these bits together to do exactly what we want to do. Now the original plan, if you watched the last one, was to do something like this. There is a problem, and as you know, anything you try and do, or rather you come up with a final plan, you go to implement it. I started fabricating some of the parts up, but there just is not enough space to do that particular idea. This bar gets in the way. Don't want to take the bar out. So we've come up, or I've come up with another plan of action, which I think will probably work better anyway, to be honest. So what we're going to try and do now is more like this here. So this is the bar going down to the rear shock mount. Coming up, a little bit of tube up here, and there's got to be a pivot here, and there's got to be a pivot down here as well. So if everything's loose, these two bolts, these 2 points are loose, you'll be able to adjust it up and it'll move this around to give us our adjustment, and then when you tighten it all back up it'll be rigid and won't move anymore. Should work. The other thing we do need to do though, because it's all about the angles that we're playing around with here, we need to be able to lift this up and down as well. That's the point where the rear shock absorber will mount to. It'll make sense when we actually start building the thing. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to try and get these rose joints. So this tube here is the one that's going to be that one. We're going to get some rose joints threaded into the end now. At the minute, as you can see, that's not going to work. So we're going to put a short insert into the end of the bar and then thread it so we can then fit this to it. So we need to do two of those, so we'll knock one up first and see what happens from there. So first thing we'll do, we'll bore out this. It's got a quick thick wall, this tube. We'll bore this out so this insert will fit inside. Now this drill isn't quite big enough, so we just have to cut it down with the lathe a little bit just to make sure that it fits in there nice and snug. Okay, so the insert's in, cut the holes drilled, as you can see around it, and we'll just fill these up with weld now and stick these two bits together. Okay, so weld it together. Right, so you can see we've welded the insert in. I've just turned the end down so it's round about flat, fairly level. It's not perfect, it doesn't matter at the moment. I'm going to leave the welds on for now because when you're doing this in the vise, it's quite nice something to grasp hold of a bit of round pipe in the vise. You can see they're sticking out the side a little bit. And I've got the tap in here. I'm not going to tap it on the lathe, but I'm just going to start it on the lathe, get it started just by hand, just by turning this, just so it starts nice and centrally. And then I'll finish it off in the vise. Okay, so we've made the sleeves and welded them in place so they're not going to move, and now we're cutting the thread in the end of it so the rose joint will screw into the end of it nicely. Okay, so now we have the threaded insert in the bar. We'll just clean up the outside of the bar back on the lathe again. Okay, so there we have. We have finished one fitting the rose joints onto the end of these shafts. So they fit on there lovely. We can lock them down, so it'll give us, when they're on the bike, it will give us an element of forwards backwards when we mount these on. It should sit around about there or so. Good stuff. Okay, so turn down a couple of these big nuts, and what we're going to do is, they're a nice snug fit, we're going to force them into here and then weld them to this tube. So I'll end up with a threaded insert inside this tube. Okay, forced them in, put them in the right place so this screws in and out nicely. So now the inserts are in there. So now we've just got to weld these so they don't move and they're solid. Okay, welded in. So now they should be solid in there. So now we've got to do, we'll just turn this back down, get rid of this horrible bit on the outside. Okay, so it's in there nicely now. So there's a threaded insert inside this tube, and I've turned the last nut down a little bit so it doesn't look quite so industrial now. And this is our lock nut, so we'll just whiz that down on top just to nip it all up when it's in place. That's pretty good. So this is the basis for our up and down movement here, for our lifting the shock up and down just a little bit. Now the pitch on the thread, it's a very coarse thread. It's around about a 3mm pitch or something like that. So it's a quite it's going to move a lot with every turn, but I'm going to make it that we can do it every half turn. So every half turn will be around about 1.5 mils worth of adjustment. That looks pretty good. Okay, we'll carry on. Okay, so we'll cut off the length that we need. Bear in mind we only need to make 3 little bits out of this bar. It seems a bit excessive using a bar this big, but I have a reason. I want to make the wall size of the bar quite large, and it will make sense, I think, when I actually get to make what I want. So we're going to cut it off first of all. It's too big to fit through the lathe, through the back of the lathe, so I'm going to have to cut it with a hacksaw. Okay, started cutting it down. It's on about 30mm at the minute. I've got to go down to about 28mm by my dodgy calculation. So I'll take it down to that, and then we'll see what we're going to do next with it. Okay, so it's cut down to 28mm, which is great. This is what I need it. Now I need to make 3 bits out of this. 2 bits of around about 25mm each, and 1 centre bit of around about 40mm. So I've got enough here, I think, but we can always take down a little bit more if we need to. Now, the centre bit and one of the 25mm sections is going to need a 12mm hole all the way through the centre, because we're going to put a 12mm bolt through this. The last bit, we've got to put a thread in it, so we can't go down as far as 12mm. So I'm just going to bore a hole down, not all of the way, down to around about there at 12mm, so we'll turn it into a tube. We have some new additions. 2 lights. Look at these. This is one of them. As you can see, it needs to be mounted properly. £3 for the pair at a car boot sale. Now that's a bargain. Now we can see what we're doing. So drew the hole through the centre, not all the way through with that size, but far enough. And now I'm just starting to cut into it to where it's going to fit onto the other pipe. Doing this on the pillar drill with a milling bit, which obviously isn't ideal. But to be honest, taking small cuts, it seems to be doing what it needs to do. Look. Yeah. Good stuff. Okay, so we're just bending the rear subframe bars into shape. Now the way I'm doing this, I'm just doing it by hand in the vise. blowtorch, heat it up, get it cherry red, and then I'm just bending it to where I need it to be. I've done one over here. Started first bend rather. This is the first bend on this side as it comes into the wheel, and then we've got to bend it further around to exactly where we want it to mount over here. They're different, both sides are different, so we've got to do them, we're not going to match them both sides, they'll be slightly different. If you look at the wheel in the rear subframe, it's that way, a long way over that way. And it's all about this sort of final drive. It's just the way that it is. So they will be slightly different. We have had a major issue being broken belt on the lathe, so I've got to get another one. So it's out of action. I've been making up some bits, and everything's coming together quite nicely at the moment with our latest plan. Now the design has changed tenfold since I last said this is how we're going to do it, so it's totally different again. I'm not even going to try and explain it to you how we're going to do it this time, because no doubt it will change again before I've actually got the thing back together again. So you'll just have to watch this space and see what we're going to try now. It looks in my head it looks fantastic, but that doesn't mean much. So I can't do much at the minute because, like I say, broken stuff. I might spend a bit of time wisely and tidy up this mess of my garage, or I could go in and see if the wife's still living with me. Decisions. I think I'll tidy up the garage.